All right, so this is part three of the finals. They didn't actually happen in the order I'm showing them, but dramatic effect and all that. So this is going to be myself versus Seto. Both of us defeated Metis, so this matchup will determine the winner of SE Nephilim. In the first game, Seto had first turn, and he went with a Doom Train hand. And actually, I had sort of expected this, though, I wouldn't have put odds higher than like 25%. But I thought if he was going to use a rare, I expected him to use Doom Train over as a race for two reasons. One is he's like Delhi, an FF8 guy, tends to use FF8 cards when available. And a second reason is I remember when I was just starting and I was looking at the forums and I was so enthralled with them. There were all these clans and they had these histories, and it was so cool to my, 17-year-old self. Still is to me now, but shh. Anyway, so I went on the forums and I saw that a finals was happening. And I think I ended up catching part of that finals, though I might have just seen the game link afterwards. But I saw that Seto had used Doom Train against Delial in, I believe, the Triad Wars 6 finals. And so I knew it was a card that at least, 13 years ago was on his radar. And so it was a card that in my head I associate with Seto. And therefore, because, whenever you start something, your kind of first impression really sticks. And my first impression was Seto and Delial are playing a finals. Those are the two best players. And Seto likes cards like Doom Train. And so that has really stuck with me ever since. On my side, a few things are going on. One is I was really inspired by Aesla throughout the tournament. Thought arguably just the best player at the tournament, and I was very lucky to beat them. And they had used 7-6-7-6 against me in the semifinals, and I had thought that played well, especially in a world of 9-9s. A second thing going on is I really wanted to use Sergeant Joe. Sadly, we don't have pretty graphics for you. I tried to screenshot every position so I could make this pretty, but I didn't remember after move 2, so we do not have those screenshots, so this will be an uglier looking format. But Sergeant Joe is a hottie, we can all admit it. And the only tournament finals we have records of from the past is because Vid happened to write them up in an Occult fan article. And in those tournament finals, I used Sergeant Joe and won. So I really liked the idea of using Sergeant Joe again. Sergeant Joe is the 4A93, the fourth card on the left. I also had a thesis this tournament of just really trying to overpower every opponent. There were two things I've really focused on throughout the tournament. I haven't really talked about either because they were sort of my secret weapon mindset, But one of them was I just want to overpower people at every turn. And aside Aesla, and we'll see in this matchup, but in every other matchup I've had, I think I was successful at that. So here I was, okay, what are the strong corners? It's A9 at level 9, it's 9-9 at level 8. I wanted to use 7-6-7-6, especially when I realized 9-9s could be prevalent, and I saw that an A9 corner paired with a 9-9 would lead to a potential starter from the 9-9, and this gave me a path where I thought I could use basically all 9-9 corners, and I could just mass that much power in one hand. I also really liked one specific synergy I want to get to, just throwing a random card in for him, which is if I play here and at some point get to follow up with here, then 5-1-9-9 has both sides, and that was a setup I really was going for. 9-3-4-9 and 9 was indeed my intended starter. Whatever was opposite the 4A9-3 was going to be my starter. I built a few hands of this type, but they all ended up very similar. It was basically 3 9-9s, an A9 corner, and the 7-6-7-6. One of them had 8-1-9-9 instead of the A9 corner, because the semi-rare 8-1-9-9 can capture a 9-9 corner in 1 from 2. So that was a backup way to get coverage of another corner. But basically all my hands were of this type, just rotated, and I wanted to use the Sergeant Joe version. So yeah, part one of my big strategy of this tournament was just try to use the most powerful cards. And I've talked about power, tridirectionality, and dynamism. And once we got to sets that were more closer to single level, I really honed in on just pure power, big corners, trying to be the slash of time that I truly am in my heart. So Seto thought for a while on his first turn. The other thing I like about the 9/9 corners is it means I have play against either of the rares, right? Doom Train is covered, and Zerace in the other corner I'd also have covered. And I have play against any A in their hand. So I thought I had good coverage. He thought for a while. I think his hand supports kind of two starters. Doom Train can be captured back by Chocobo, 4/4/8/9, and Salamander can be captured back by a combination of Doom Train and Chocobo. He goes with Doom Train, which makes a lot of sense. 4/4/8/9 has the captures back both ways. I think this kind of starter is interesting and hard to play. So one great thing is you have a card that captures back in both squares. And because it has high outfacing, if the opponent leaves those squares open, often whenever it does need to recapture, it can capture other things too. Or if the opponent doesn't capture it at the end, if 2 and 6 are left open and the opponent goes in one of them at the end, but I don't capture, then 4/4/8/9 in the other square is still going to have a lot of power facing out and a good chance to get the needed captures. So it really creates a kind of straightforward, easy game plan that can be very effective. The downside is, with only one other A in the hand, if there's ever a reason you'd want to play in 2 or 6, you kind of can't until the end, right? Because anytime you stick something in one of them, I'm just going to throw a random card out for me, anytime you stick one in one of them, you just get comboed back so hard. So the opponent can't go in 2 or 6, but you have a lot of trouble operating around those squares too. And I think that's the real drawback of this kind of move. And one of the reasons that I think, while corner starters are very good and closed, and a lot of good players play them, I tend to play center starters, but I think a lot of the better players prefer corner starters. They don't usually start with a strong corner. Now, they might if it's a rare, and they have the card that can recapture it both ways. Usually, a starter can't be comboed back both ways by the same card, but it can in the case of a rare. But the downside of these strong corners is they're just really hard to play next to at some point. It also might lock up 2 cards to recapture. Here, it only locks up 1. Chocobo, the 4/4/8/9, has both sides. But it's difficult to play around, and I think that is an underrated challenge of these kinds of moves. So my other core thesis in this tournament, the other thing I was really trying to focus on in my play, as I'm doing my normal thinking, but I'm also really trying to emphasize this, is what I'm going to start calling the half spaces. Stealing a term from soccer, if you've read about positional football, Juego de Posicional or whatever, the kind of stuff Pep Guardiola is doing. It's a lot about, well, we don't need to get into what that is because it's not actually relevant. What I mean is, when a move, say, goes here, it creates this square in 6, which now only has 1 out facing. It's sort of a potential safety, right? A card could go in 6 that is strong enough facing out, nothing can take it. Or similarly, if I go in 1, a card could go in 2 that is strong enough out facing, nothing can take it. And I think these squares are just really important. And the more I've been playing in the return, the more important I'm finding them. So being really careful about both conceding these half safeties, and I've decided to turn half safety into half space because I like the reference to soccer. So these half spaces, I think conceding them is so important to avoid, or at least I really wanted to focus on avoiding them, because I thought if I avoid giving them half spaces, I avoid giving them easy moves, and I can make my opponent's time a lot harder. At the same time, anytime a half space is created for me, I want to jump on it. So if we just think about a corner starter in general, how can you reply such that you give the fewest half spaces? Well, anything here both gives a lock-in and a half space here. Anything here gives 2 potential half spaces. Anything here gives 2 half spaces. Anything here gives 1 half space. The only move that doesn't give a half space is the far corner. And I was really intending in most formats to be meeting things with the far corner. Thing is, I really don't want to play this here, both because if it was captured from 4, I don't have a great recapture. Now, he has no capture from 4, so that's fine, but mostly it just gives up pressure on their starter, and that makes it a lot easier for them to play around their starter. Would this have been a bad move? No, it's probably fine, right? But And it does follow the thing of giving no half spaces. But the other thing is, with their starter, they can't really play next to it, which means 2 and 6 aren't really half spaces conceding them. So I was drawn to 1 or 9. And here I thought Sergeant Joe, my card, in 1 was kind of perfect, and I loved my position. I thought they can't play in 2, because I combo back in 6. If they play in 1, I can recapture in 2, choosing whether or not I want to flip 3, right? I have multiple options for captures there. And I have this combo, though they do potentially combo back, but it also gets Fat Chocobo out of their hand, so at the end, maybe I can play something like this. And I didn't actually evaluate this position, but I thought it was good for me. Seto does have ties here. But I thought it was certainly not losing. And I might not combo back, I might play something like here or something like here. They don't have any card that has both captures in 2, and in fact they have no capture of 1 from 2. They don't have much comfort in 4. I have more comfort in 4. I have the double capture in 2. I feel like I have every square, and it's hard for them to make the natural in-between move in 2, because I have the combo in 6. So I thought this is really high pressure, and a nice early advantage, and a nice chance to press for a win. And I think Seto played a fantastic move of 6, 7, 9, 4, and 9, which really stopped me in my tracks here. One thing, I was tempted to play an 8, right? If I play an 8 and he has to recapture in 6, that's vulnerable to combos on 3 from 2. Again, he can't play in 6 or 2. So I'm immediately thinking, if I go in 4 or 8, I could force action in 2 or 6 respectively, and they can't really go there because they can't go next to their starter. But the problem is, if I use this card, I give up a ton of pressure on their starter. If I use this card, I give up recaptures and a ton of pressure on their starter. I wanted to keep those cards in my hand. I also thought, if stuff's filling up over here, this card with power facing it is going to be my key card. This card and this card, the 2 cards I'd want to get rid of, don't do anything there. And so I didn't have a card to put in 8. I could also go in 4, but as soon as you start looking at 4, you realize, I'm giving up a half safety, and I just have no control over that square. And they still have 2 and 6 left open, but suddenly I haven't forced them to go there in an uncomfortable way. My move in 4 was intended to try to force them to have to go in 2, but it doesn't at all. They can just go 7. So that doesn't really get anywhere. I didn't seriously consider 9. I think in 3-corner setups, 9 is just, generally speaking, not very good. There's just so many half spaces on the board that it's very unlikely they have serious problems, because it is so easy for them to find safe moves. And they can leave 2 and 6 open. They probably play A9, 4, 4, and either 4 or 8, and I thought that wasn't promising at all. I also briefly considered 5. I think the main point of going in 5 would be to kill 4, 4, 8, 9. Because if they can't play in 2 or 6, they have to leave it open till the end. What if I go in 5, 4, 7, and 8 fill up, and they have 4, 4, 8, 9 for 2 and 6, and I play in 6, I don't flip 3, I do flip 9, they go in 2, and they flip nothing. If I can make that a dead card with something like this. But the problem is, it actually powers the card up because it gives it 4 as well. And I can't use up this card, it's too important, it has too much of my control of that square. So I didn't have something good to put in 5. So I was mostly considering 2 and 6. So mostly I was considering this here and this here, and in the end, I thought here was the better shot. My point is, if they don't go in 2, I'm going to go in 2, and this is kind of their only card that can do anything. The other cards are dead. If they do go in 2, I have this big combo back. But Seto correctly saw, as he so often does, this isn't scary at all. He can play here, and A9, 4, 4, which has really been the most powerful card in his hand, is strong enough to get a comfortable tie. So we tie game 1. I thought his 6, 7, 9, 4, and 9 was great. I think in general my hand is just significantly more powerful cards, and that I played a really good first move with Sergeant Joe in 1, and had really good winning chances, and he just neutralized it without really a problem. And that 6, 7, 9, 4, and 9 was a fantastic move, and this is a very easy position to lose. I haven't actually checked with the solver. in this position, how many ties does he have? Out of 28 moves, he has 8 ties, and one of them is this, which is really awkward to force to work. One of them is this, which just looks terrifying. You're not playing that in a real game. One of them is this, which is pretty similar to his concept. Yeah, this is all, like, these are just not very human moves. So anyways, I think he made a fantastic move to save this one, and I felt like I let a chance get away, but I don't think I actually had a chance here. I think he played too well. So we move on to game 2. I'm going to put in the hands. This time I had first turn. And I thought pretty bad news for me, he changed hands. I think I had his previous hand really well covered, and I got first turn, so I'm on the right in red. He's second turn in the blue. He has switched. He's now using 8199 Titan, which I also thought was a pretty strong card. Though I had switched to this hand over the Titan hand because I thought I can get 9/9 corners at level 8. Do I really need to use my level 9 on a 9/9 corner? But that 8 is a really useful number. And he switched using a 9/9 corner himself, which does somewhat cover my intended starter. And the 1987 is a bit annoying for my hand to take. It was really smart of him to put a couple 8s going up and down, 8199 and 1987, once he saw the 7676 I was using. Because I was very unlikely to switch hands given that I thought I had good pressure and I thought my hand had a big advantage. Also, all my backup hands rotated to worst cover the rares, so I wanted to make sure if he stuck with his hand, I had it well covered. So I was just very likely to stick with my hand here, and he adjusted his hand, I think, really nicely to deal with this stuff. I think the 8765 last game was pretty much a dead card, and I think it is likely to be again here. I think 8765s on pure level 8 games are pretty good, and on games like this, kind of just get overrun on a power level. Like, it needs to be lined up correctly with the 9/9 corners, and I have so many 9/9 corners that a lot of them it won't be lined up against. So, I did my intended starter after a little thought. He had enough coverage of every other 9/9. You know, I go here, he can take it both ways. I can't take back, that's garbage. Here, similarly, he is really well covered. If nothing else, he has the A9 facing it, but he has more power facing it too. So my intended starter seemed both the one that fit best against his hand, but also it's the one my hand is actually built to support. And I really expected 1987 and 1. I thought this was the move that potentially created difficulties. He thought it set me up too well because he saw the point of my hand. He saw I have this starter, but I also have this big setup follow-up using cards that seem kind of irrelevant to my starter, but my 9/9s can kind of play off each other. And I was really hyped when I found this combination that the 5199 with a 995 could set up tons of synergies. And he wanted to avoid this. And this is probably what I would have done. It was the idea I had in mind, but I did think maybe he could just block 2 here. I think I wasn't seeing anything that promising here. I wanted to go 8 and say my 7676 is just going to crush you up down, but I can't when he has this combo here, or can't so easily. So I wasn't sure there. He picks up 1987 and he puts it in 5. And my first instinct was, I have more combos now, right? My 5199 has 6. He has 8199 for 6, but I also have 7676 for 8. And he has nothing so clean in 8. He has to play 9A42, and if, 9A42 at some point lands in 8, I have this really nice recapture. So he kind of doesn't have very good play in 8, and I have really good play in 8. But that pulls me both ways. His weaker play in 8 means maybe I should force him to go 8, but my good play in 8 means maybe I should leave 8 open, because 7676 has some potential play in both these squares. Maybe I should leave them open. But it probably would have to land here, and they don't really have to flip 9, so maybe it doesn't. Unclear. My first instinct was, though, do I want the game to be up, down, or side to side? I want it to be up, down. I want 7-6, 7-6 to sweep. So I kind of wanted to drop one of these 3 cards in 2. This was the first thing I looked at. Now, the problem with this one is I don't like that it gives him the combo. And I don't have a combo on the other side. I felt pretty uncomfortable with that kind of move. Similarly, this one gives him play, and I don't even have a recapture from 3, so this is just not feasible. And so mostly I was looking at this one, where 4A9-3 has the recaptures both ways, but notably, they're both covered. And again, I've given up a combo, so I couldn't get something in 2 to work, though I wanted to make the game up-down. I also don't really have any synergies to play well in 1. But this is where my other focus of the tournament, I think, really helped me out, which is focusing on the half spaces, saying, okay, he's conceded me potential stuff in 6 or 8, and I know he is bad to play in 8, so I'm drawn towards 6. Can I play in 6 in a way that's tough for him to take? And the answer is yes. The answer is if I use this card, I have his only capture covered by a combo, and this I have covered here. And this looks very dangerous for him. He still doesn't have 3. He doesn't have 4. Where's he going? This looks really difficult. Both my cards are really good on the top row. Notably, I don't even need to combo this. I also have this double capture. So I have lots of ways to approach whatever he does. And I thought this put him in a tough position. He ended up timing out here, but we reset to the same position. He made the move he said he was going to make instantly, so there was no exploiting getting extra time going on here. And he ends up going 9-3, 4-9, and 3. And I thought this was really interesting. So a few things happened here. One is Deli was watching, and Deli is smarter than me. So I had seen that after this, I had this combo, but I wasn't sure if I was winning after either of the combos back. Now, Deli very studiously said nothing, but afterwards mentioned, you did win both ways there. And I actually had seen it after he made his move here. I saw the lines, or kind of as we were getting back to the position, I saw it. But the point Deli saw much quicker was I can combo. He has these combos back, which note they combo 5, combo 6. But if they do it this way, he has only 4s facing down, and I can go here. And and only 9s facing up, and I have everything just beautifully covered, and I win. And if he does it this way, this was the one I didn't see. This was the trickier one. But I did eventually find it, to my credit. I have 9-9, 5-3, and 7, and 4A9-3 is a bomb landing on either square. So, cool find. Deli saw this much, much quicker than I did, but I did eventually get there. And so Seto's point, and I think this is very clever, is 8-1-9-9 gives up all down power and leaves him with these 2 4s facing down. Using 9-3-4-9 there is actually quite similar, because if I'm going to combo, it doesn't really matter that he didn't flip 6, because his combo back is what's going to flip 6, and last time I was winning here with 4A9-3, but this time I'm not winning at all, I'm losing. And so, and also, if I do combo, his combos back are even better with the 9-3-4-9, because you'll notice with the 8-1-9-9, when he combos back, 3 never flips. But because the 9-3-4-9 is weak to 6, when I combo, everything flips. And so even if I could take anything he put in 4, I'd still lose 6-4. So I thought this was a pretty clever idea. And that 2 clearly didn't work. So where else do we look? Well, we look at the half spaces. And it took a little checking. I wasn't super sharp on this, but 5-1-9-9 and 8, if they go somewhere like 2, I win against anything here, because this is safe and my last card's going to capture. So they have to go in 7. And that makes it a linear line to check. I just have to find a move here, and all the pluses work for me after this. I have the plus here, 9 plus 3 equals 7 plus 5. I have the plus wall here, and he didn't capture anything. I have the plus here, and this I don't need to. And so I saw this was a winning line, and it is a winning line. The actual end of the game was he did go in 7, I did go in 2, and he played in 1, leading to the 6-4. So, felt really happy with that win, but also I think the key move for me was this move in 6. And I think being really focused on what if I go in the half spaces made this an easier move to find than it might have been otherwise. I also think my hand was just very powerful, and basically throughout the tournament, I overpowered people with just bigger numbers in my hand every round except the semifinals against Acela, and not coincidentally, Acela was the round that I was very clearly closest to losing. I think game 2 I was in serious trouble and was lucky to save it, and was also the matchup that had the most ties. I had 4 ties over the run of the tournament, 1 against Genova, 1 against Seto, and 2 against Acela. So, yeah, mad props to Acela. I said this in one of the previous videos, but if there's anyone whose games are worth studying from this tournament for, like, efficient and excellent tournament play, I think it's Acela. Just excellent hand making, really efficient, smart finishing on all of their games. Had second turn against me 3 times and found different and good ways to meet my corner starters in all of them, showing skill at very different types of strong ways of meeting starters, not being locked into any given type, but really smartly finding different ways to put pressure. Fantastic tournament for Acela. Is there anything else to say about this game? So yeah, in the finals, the actual order of them was I beat Midas with a hand that basically just overpowered his, and then I beat Seto, and then the final game, which I believe you will see first or second, but it leads to more dramatic tension because it makes this one the finals. I think neither player was all that enthused because neither of them were playing for first, but Midas misses a plus and ends up throwing that game from a promising position. Overall, I think Seto plays at least as well as anyone, but his hands can be a little lower power, and that gives a chance to overpower him. I think Midas had fantastic hand selection on par with Acela through up to the semifinals. And then once he hit the semifinals and it was more single level sets, or single or duo level sets, he didn't have as good a feel for those sets and ended up getting in more trouble. Just not identifying the power cards quite as well. So really awesome run to the semis and then a little shakier from there. And I think something he could do better is better handling of the single or duo level sets. I think for me, my focus was really effective. I think the semifinal round was the toughest round for me, and I did not come up with a good hand. And I probably should have come up with something more like what Acela did, and I basically stole from that for this finals. I took the 7-6, 7-6. I sort of did a similar build to what he did with 9-9 corners at the bottom and slightly more dynamic in the A9 corner and the 5-1 on the backside of the 9-9 corners at the top. This is just a very similar hand, changed levels to what Acela used against me in the semifinals. Again, massive credit to Acela here. Of the semifinalists, DJ beat Piggy, which is just fantastic, and had a real shot to beat Midas. DJ could have been a finalist, and that's just superb. Acela, I can't say it enough. I kind of think had the best tournament of anyone, and Delhi actually has a decent argument of that too, with his match against Seto going so weird. And also, in a lot of ways, I'm lucky that happened, because Delhi is, I think, very clearly my worst matchup on the site. I have an even or plus record against every player but Delial in Open in the return, and Delial has beaten me 3 more times than I've beaten him. And yeah. So I think for me, avoiding Delhi was really valuable. And the weirdness that went on in the semifinals was very weird. And Delhi basically played just perfectly to that point, and is another person who I think, despite probably feeling pretty disappointed with the tournament, actual play-wise, had a pretty wonderful result, if we're focusing on moves made. So I guess that's a recap of the tournament. I think for my next tournament, I'm really going to try, now that like some of the stress is off, because I gotta win. It's like I don't have to, desperately wake up every night, not every night, but like wake up in the morning thinking like, oh no, what are these level 9 cards swirling around my head? I'm nervous. I hope for the next one I will be less so, and will feel less pressure to win, so we'll enjoy it a bit more, but we'll also be freer to feel free to record and do things that I think, like, obviously I'm very good when I record still, but it feels like I lose a little bit of equity, and I was not willing to give that up in this first back, but hopefully I can bring myself to record in the next one, because it would be fun to do live all my major tournament games. So we'll see how that goes, and if it goes terribly, then the one after that I will go back to not recording, but I'm hopeful. And yeah, I'm obviously very happy with the win. I think there's this funny thing of the first one you win is elation, right? It just feels so good. And then after that, it's so easy to get insane expectations on yourself, where if you don't win a tournament, it's a disaster. When in fact, the best players ever, the very best, are winning. Like, okay, Doc Evil won more than this, but Doc Evil only played 3 tournaments. Are winning like 20% of their tournaments tops for their career, right? And at their peak, they're winning a bit more than that. But like, if, Turds is, say, the 13th, 14th, something like that, best player of all time, and has a very real chance to move up that list, and has won, 5%, 7% of the tournaments he's played. That's an incredibly high rate. And so this feeling of like, if I don't win, I've failed, can be really exhausting, and I have to find a way to not feel that. Because that made this tournament, while like I'm really happy I won, it made it both stressful and not as elating, more a feeling of relief when it ended. So I gotta figure out how to better manage that. It's been a while, and it is sort of what drove me off last time, was stressing myself out too much over this. So I gotta figure that out for me, and I think my play was good in this tournament. I think it was really good. I'm really happy with how I played, and obviously I'm delighted with the result, but I do have some mental things to work on, and hopefully I will. I know I'm not the only player who has this kind of stress, but it would be nice to move past it. And hopefully getting a win, under my belt, we can move on to the next one and just have a good time, record my games, enjoy playing them, try to find cool moves, maybe keep the same focus of overpowering and half spaces, but maybe try to make more creative moves as well. Though, really happy with how I played, so, no complaints on that front. Congratulations to everyone else who did well, who earned an icon, or took out a top dog. There were a whole bunch of upsets, and massive credit to people like Crescent and, I'm forgetting some, Fish. There were some others, though, who evicted really top-tier opponents. And this wraps up Nephilim. So, see you for the next one. Don't know what that will be yet. One last thing is, Deli and I have pooled our special edition cards to potentially build a special edition hand, and we've realized we have terrible selection on which of these tournaments we win, right? Because he won Irvine, which is a 2/6/9A for, that's clearly a corner card for 3. I just won Nephilim, 3/7/7A, which is a corner card for 3. He won Onion Knight, 6/6/9/8, which is a corner card for 3. I won Rufus 567A, which is a corner card for 3. So there are 2 we've won that aren't corner cards for 3. There's Kate Sith 855A and Selfie A864. But between us, we still can't make a halfway decent hand because we just haven't won corner cards for other cards than 3, despite having won a truly unbelievable 6 special editions, 7 if you count Deli's Rhinoa. Deli has won more of these things than I have, but still can't make a goofy all special edition hand out of it that has any decent play at all. So I think that's amusing. Hopefully we can change that someday in the future. And what else? Metis has now tied the record for most finals reached without winning any. So he is caught up to Chickeny. If I do a reappraisal of my all-time standings, Metis will maybe have made it into the 20s. There's a good chance Metis is now in the 20s. Seto and myself can't really move. Aesila moves up a bunch for me. Part of where I had Aesila was really just being unfamiliar with this player, and I am so impressed, as hopefully I have not bored you with. DJ gets his first semifinal. Definitely approaching my top 100. Not sure we'll make it in, and I don't know when I'll do an update, if I will, but DJ will definitely be someone now to really keep in mind for that top 100. And Deli doesn't move, A semifinal for Deli is, another semifinal, That is a perfectly solid showing. That is, what a great is expected to do, so it doesn't feel that good. But obviously, anytime you make a semifinal, this is a good result for anyone, even if for some people it feels tough, especially how it happened. So sometime I'll probably come back to that, maybe when there are a few more tournaments down. And looking forward to the next one, and looking forward to recording while playing it, because I think that will help me take it as less like serious must win, and I think that would be good. So Nephilim has ended. It was a good tournament. It was a nice tournament back. I'm really glad we got up to 48 people for it. It ended up having a whole bunch of rounds. I didn't play my round 1. I beat Genova after a tie, where she played really well in round 2. I beat Akiyama in round 3. I beat Aesila after 2 ties in round 4. And then I beat Seto and Metis. So I did end up with 5 wins in the event, and would have had 6 if my first round hadn't been an activity win. And that's a full-length tournament. 6 rounds is as many as tournaments have had since, I guess 2010 had some 7-rounders, but it was all because there were a bunch of buys in the first round. So it wasn't really a 7-rounder for most players. And so basically the last time 7-rounders were happening reliably was 2006, 7-ish, 6? I think 6. And so 6-rounders is about as good as TTA has gotten for 15 years. And for the last, since 2012, it's been mostly 5-rounders with a 4-rounder or 2 thrown in there. So really cool to get back up to 6 rounds. Just awesome how the revival has gone so far, I think. And yeah, see you next time. Sorry about the ugly graphics on this one. One of the other benefits of recording live is I will get the actual positions with the pretty cards, and I won't have to bring up, an image of Sergeant Joe to pretend that there was some graphical joy in these videos.